Today I wanted to make this quick little tutorial on how to get swings in your drums. If you haven't noticed, I'm using FL Studio. So this is specific to how to do this if you're not using like a drum machine, be it an MPC, a machine, or a MIDI keyboard with drum pads. Because I've gotten a question a couple of times from people who are undecisive saying, how do I get swing inside of like FL Studio or like Ableton? Or do I need a drum machine if I'm trying to get like that classic hip hop swing in my drums? So basically my answer to that is you can do it in either FL Studio, Ableton, or using a drum machine, but you don't need a drum machine to do it. So that's why I just want to make this tutorial for those people. So I already have a piece of a sample chopped up in here. The sample doesn't matter. I just happen to like this one for this example. So we'll take a look here. So the first thing I'll do is I'll just add some drums real quick. Again, the drum doesn't matter for the sake of the example. We'll go with this classic snare I have labeled here. I'll drop the sample a little bit, and then again, let's just get a kick. Go with that one. Again, the drum sounds don't matter for this example, so don't get caught up into what kick is that, what snare is that. It does not matter. We'll do like a classic example of what this will sound like if you're just trying to get a quick 2-bar loop, right? Alright, so if you're trying to get like just a classic 2-bar loop kick snare, this is what it may sound like. Say if you're drawing it in FL Studio or something. So, whoops, oh, it's looped. Okay. And you could see the sample is not hitting on time, so let's just fix that real quick. This is not important to this tutorial, so don't get caught up into this part. Hold on, let me just fix that really quick. I just want this first part to hit on time, so otherwise some of the tutorial may not make sense, and that's not what we want. We want it to make sense. So let me just put the timing on this right. This is also more or less what I do to get my samples on time. This is part of the chopping process, and there will be a video on that too, so no worries. So let's see. So let's go back to the drums. And like I said, this is all about swing. So we're trying to see what the drums are going to sound like, assuming you were trying to get like that classic hip hop swing, and you were just drawing these in your DAW. So that doesn't sound too bad, right? But it doesn't have that swing, that feel, that classic feel you want is not there. And this is where the question comes up from people like, damn, do I need a drum machine? Because like this is, when I try it, this is what I get, but this isn't the sound I want. You know, that's kind of where everybody falls into is it sounds good, but it's not what I'm looking for. So it sounds too stiff, very robotic, like it sounds programmed, like you drew it in. And that's not what you want from music. Music has a natural feeling, a natural rhythm to it. If it sounds robotic, it doesn't sound natural to the listener, you know? So how can we fix this? So in FL Studio, we're gonna go in here. So right now the timing on this is quarter step. So it's basic quantizing, right? And so one of the things I one of the little tricks to this is, and you can do this in any DAW, you can change the timing, quarters, thirds, and thirds seems to be the trick for the swing drum right here. So if you pay attention to this one right here that I'm highlighting, see the little stutter, the little delay, the little syncopation, the little jazz feel is not there. So when I switch this to thirds, I'm gonna take this drum hit, and I could even see the line right here that I wanted, and I'm gonna just move it over and then watch how it sounds now. You see the difference right there? Just when I moved it from quarter quantize to third quantize, watch the swing automatically comes in right there, you know. And then we'll do the same thing here. See, this one's in quarter quantize. I'm gonna move it to the third, and then watch how different it sounds now. You see, and this one's still in quarter, and you can do that. You might want to leave one in quarter and then, you know, like alternate or whichever one you want, really. Again, it goes back to a feeling. There's no rule to like, all right, well, which one do I move? Do I move this one or do I move this one? It doesn't really matter. I mean, you're making your beat, so you move the one you want. So I moved this one here, and the last one, but I didn't move this one. And we'll just see how this loop sounds now compared to how it was in the beginning. You see, and I'm gonna duplicate it just so we could see. We'll do a comparison, like a before and after. So we'll put this back all to quarters, and we'll play both of them, and you'll see. So here's the original. See, sounds a little stiff, right? And then here's the new one where we move to thirds, and you can even see the difference. If you look at this graph right here, look, you see the difference. The third up here hits a little later, right here hits a little later, right here hits a little later, and now this is what it sounds like. You see, you instantly hear the difference. It sounds more natural. It sounds more like, you know, like if somebody was playing this on drums or something. I'm not a drummer, FYI, so don't get drum advice from me per se. But I want to move this one. I didn't like the way it sounded. I want them all on the third hit, and you can instantly see the difference. And the same thing with snares. Let's apply the same idea to snares, right? Let's say I want like a little snare roll, right? So one of the things you want to do as well is check your timing, and let's try quarter first, because this might be the default in your software. So if we put the quarter timing right here, let's do it on the second one. We put the quarter timing right here, right? You see, that was a little stiff. I almost felt like you could feel like this hit right here came in too soon. Like something just didn't feel right with it, right? So let's put it in thirds, and we're gonna move it over one, and let's see how that sounds now. Right, and it sounds better, but some of you might still say like, it sounds better, but something still doesn't sound right about it. And that's where velocity comes in, because much like a drummer doesn't hit everything at the same velocity. Every kick, every snare, every hi-hat, every cymbal, everything doesn't ever hit at the same velocity, and that also contributes to swing. So I'm gonna take this added snare here, I'm gonna drop the velocity, and watch the difference instantly just by dropping the velocity, how it sounds. You see that? You see that little flam? All I did was change the velocity. You know, the first time I moved it to thirds, like I said, I moved my timing to thirds right here, because it shifts the grid. If you look at the grid carefully, it shifts it for you. So I moved it to thirds. This is quarters here, moved it to thirds, then I dropped the velocity. And you know, you could do this. Let's say you wanted to add add another one, and then drop the velocity on that one even more, and then watch how this sounds. See, this sounds more natural with the changing velocities than if I just did this like this. You see, if they all just hit at the same velocity, it just doesn't feel right. It might sound right to you, but it really doesn't sound right. I mean, let's be honest. And then we could put one even closer in here for like a quicker flam effect. But again, it only works if you do the velocities. And usually the trick to the velocity is increasing velocity. So you want to start low and then work your way up in the velocity. So let's see how this sounds. And you can do the same thing with the kicks as well. See, all my kicks right now are hitting on max velocity. Well, I just said everything doesn't hit the same. So if you want to really get that natural feeling swing, so you take this third note kick we did, let's drop it a little. And again, there's no rule to how much you drop it. Obviously, you don't want it too low because you're not going to hear it. But you put it where it sounds right to you, where you get the swing you're looking for. So let's try it. Let's just try it halfway. Let's see what happens. I'll close my eyes. You know, and that sounds good. And say, okay, maybe I want it a little lower just for the feel I'm going for. And you see, this already feels more natural by dropping the initial velocity on the first kick, which is the same thing we did with our snare here. We dropped this first velocity, was way down here. Next one hits a little higher, and then the hit we want. So yeah, this is most of it, really. This is most of the trick. And see, let's play the original we had with no swing, no third stab, no velocity change. Let's see how this is how the original sounded when we started. And that's not bad, right? You might hear that and say, okay, I could work with that. I can make a beat from that. You know, if you rap, you know, I can rap over that. But you know in yourself, it doesn't feel right. You know, it's not really the swing you're looking for, because there is no swing in it. Let's be honest. And then this is where we came. This is how far we came right here after doing all the swings and all the velocities. So this is how it sounds now. And you can apply this same method to your hi-hats, because again, hi-hats are also very important to swing. Just to give you an example, we're just gonna look at this loop real quick so you could see. If you look at this hi-hat loop, look at the velocity on this one versus this one versus this one. You see, they're all hitting differently. Why? Well, we just said it. If they all hit the same, it'll sound right mechanically. You know, you're hitting like every 4 for every 8 step, but it feels too robotic. It feels unnatural. You know, if every sound just hit max volume, sure, you can call it a beat, but it sounds way too robotic, way too stiff. So whoever made this loop, obviously they understood, like, hey, I'm trying to make it sound real, natural. And here's another thing too, if you look carefully, notice how this one is not hitting exactly where the line is, but this one is, and then this one isn't. This one hits a little early, this one hits a little late over here. That also adds to the swing. And I'm gonna add this loop to the beat. I'm gonna make my own, but I'm gonna add it to the beat just so you can see what this will sound like. So I'm gonna just take this last one off here. I'm gonna just chop this at the end, and let's just see how this sounds. Let's mute these for now. Let's just hear the hi-hats, see how it sounds. All right, so as you can see, like, these hi-hats already have a little bit of swing to them because, as we mentioned earlier, you have some hitting higher velocities, lower velocities. The timing's a little off on some of them. Some of them are a little later, a little sooner. But we're gonna do this with our own hats, right? So let's take this off for now. Let's take this hat. I do want to take this beginning off, this little space here, and I'm gonna show you why in a second. So, oops, I only take this piece. We don't want that. All right, so we have this hat in here, and let's put it every 4. So going back to what we said about drumming, it's about natural feel. It's not about being robotic or rigid, right? So a drummer wouldn't just for no random reason say, okay, I'm gonna play every hi-hat at max velocity, every single one for the whole beat. It's like, no, that's not real, that's not natural. Even if they could do it, they wouldn't, because again, that it just doesn't feel natural, right? So the first thing I'm gonna do, let's drop these down. Doesn't matter where, again, it's preference. Listen to it, see how loud you think you want them. But we're gonna add to that, right? We're gonna add to that velocity issue. Let's say we start dropping this one, move this one a little, maybe this one comes in a little higher, this one goes down a little, this one stays the same, this one goes down, this one goes up, right? And so now let's see the difference when we play this version. See, so I can feel the difference a little bit. It may not seem like it, you know, off jump, but you can, if you really sit down and listen carefully, you can feel there's a different sound with the hi-hats hitting at different velocities. And you can make it more obvious if you want. Let's say, let's drop this one down more, you know, this one higher. So let's see. You see, you can hear it more now because I dropped some of them more. This feels more natural. This feels like someone who's just found the groove, playing it, you know. Now let's add the kick and the snare, which we added swing to. You see how much more natural the whole thing sounds now? You know, and all of that is really just due to the kick quantizing third we did here. You know, we came here, we changed the timing to thirds, we moved one over, we dropped the velocity on it a little bit. We did the same thing with the snare. You know, we changed it to thirds, moved one over, we added an extra one, but we created this velocity increase from low to high. So this is where we are. Now let me play the original. I'm gonna play it the way we started, with no swing, with no third. I'm gonna take the hi-hats out too, show you where we were. Again, it's not bad. This doesn't sound bad, but it's, you know, this is not what you want. You wanted swing, you wanted natural, you wanted that hip-hop feel. This isn't really it. You could work with this, but this is, you know, this is not what you're looking for. So now let's hear it with all the swing we added and the hi-hats with the changing velocities. See how much more natural that feels? You know, it's the same sample, it's the same beat tempo, it's the same sounds, it's the same kick, snare, hi-hat, but there's a groove to it now. This feels better. This is what you wanted. And so that's basically it. That's the whole thing. It's, you know, learning how to mess with the timing here. You know, 9 times out of 10 your software is probably going to be in quarter quantizing, which means, you know, this hit would actually be here, and just by changing it to thirds, you know, you could see the line shift right there. Let's move it over to that line, and that already starts creating the swing, you know. And then the next part is the velocity. You know, mess with the velocities. You don't want everything hitting max, because you'll get the sound you want timing wise, but not the swing, because every kick, every snare, every hi-hat is all hitting max volume, which is just not real. It's not natural, right? And that's basically it. That's how you get swing. So the whole purpose of this tutorial, like I started, was people who had questions about, hey, I use drum machines and now I'm using, you know, FL Studio, Ableton, Pro Tools, whatever, and like I can't get that swing anymore. Or if you've never used a drum machine and you're just starting off with software and you're like, hey man, how do I get that swing? Everything I do sounds stiff, sounds robotic, sounds like I programmed it. Well, this is what this is. I'm not talking anybody out of getting drum machines. I started on drum machines. My very first piece of equipment was an Akai MPC 1000. So I swear by it. I would recommend it to anybody. But if you're just a person who's deciding, I want to get away from hardware, or you can't decide if maybe you think you need hardware to get this kind of feel, hopefully this clears up some questions for you and helps you out a bit. And if you want to run a mixed environment, that's cool too. Maybe you want your drum machine, but you also want to run software and kind of go back and forth between the two. So yeah, so I hope this helps. If you have questions, leave them down in the comments. I'm going to be making more tutorials on different things, just anything to help your process, help your production. If there's anything specific you want to see, leave it in the comments. I'll try my best to get to all of them. I'll do sample chopping ones. I'll do how to get timing right, you know, because here, look, I had to chop this into a couple pieces just to get the timing right. So I can make a tutorial on that, how to get this a sample that's too much off time, how to get it off time to kind of loop properly and things like that. So I hope y'all enjoyed this. Appreciate it, everyone who watched this till the end, or even if you only watch 30 seconds, I appreciate you just clicking on the video. So that's it. Hope y'all enjoyed.